Welcome to Powering Through Life, the podcast. I'm your host, Teresa Sims. I'm a coach, an author, wife, mom, survivor, and thriver. Each week on Powering Through Life, my guest and I will discuss a special topic that's close to their heart. Together, we will explore the challenges they have faced in life and learn what strategies and tools they have used to power through their life. So get ready to be inspired, motivated, and become a thriver. Hello and welcome to Powering Through Life. I have an amazing guest today. Her name is Kissonda Williams, and she's a woman with an unbelievable story of resilience that will inspire you to change the way you show up for yourself when you're willing to move out of your comfort zone, even with the stomach butterflies, and to decide to live your best peaceful life. Kissonda has an amazing journey, and I'm so happy to have her with me today. Kissonda, welcome to Powering Through Life.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here. And I love your topic. The topic we're going to discuss today is moving out of your comfort zone to leave a toxic relationship. So, Kissonda, would you like to give us some background detail on what that means?
Sure. I'm coming to learn as I'm still, transitioning out of that relationship. It was 16 years. Um, that you know what you know already, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I knew long before I physically left last August that I had already checked out of the relationship. And, you start going into, well, for the sake of the kids, we want to be in a two-parent household. And it wasn't just me. I think it was him as well. Like we've kind of said it. Um, and that doesn't serve anybody. The kids are not food. Um, and I think sometimes that's the biggest aha is like, like you're covering something up for the sake of everyone else. But, just because they're kids doesn't mean that they're stupid. Like,
No, they're more intuitive than we give them credit
very
for.
much so. Very much
Yeah.
so. You can feel the energy in the air, despite, when it explodes and then it turns into the fights and the arguments and all these types of things. And I can speak for myself in saying that what took so long in moving was the fact that it was comfortable. If as odd as that may be, it's kind of like you dance with the devil that you know, right? So why start over when, okay, yeah, well, I know this is going to happen. I know, I know after this fight I can count down for like 3 more months before something else will happen. um so it'll be kind of calm for a minute, and then I kind of have an idea of when things will get a little rocky again. And in the meantime, I have my routines of work and home and kids schedules and homework and all this type of stuff. And so after a while, it's just what you know. And I know I have a habit of tunnel vision, right? So it's just head down and plow right into everything. So as long as things are getting done, the tasks are being done, um, then I can manage through everything else. The bills are paid. Okay, the kids are going to their activities, everybody's in school, this and that. And it doesn't do anything to serve you personally. It didn't do anything to serve me. And I had just gotten to a point of being frustrated and of starting to feel a lot of resentment um, towards just the level of responsibilities that I ended up taking on in the relationship and feeling like I was by myself. And so then I was like, well, why am I not by myself?
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's comfortable in doing the things that you know and being with who you already know. Um,
Do you
And
find also, Cassandra, that there's a level of energy that goes along with it, that you're so exhausted, your whole body, your soul, your being is so exhausted that you don't have the energy to get up and fight it or move or leave it or, that sort of thing?
yeah, I mean, there were days, particularly within the last year, it's funny you said that, that there were, I'm a teacher by profession, and I had taken off, I think there was almost 1 week that I took off. Just because, like you said, I was tired, like I was exhausted. And at the time, I couldn't explain why,
Yeah.
but I just felt, and it was more mental than it was physical. But, of course, it did manifest itself physically. Like I could get up and get everybody out and about their way, and then I was just done. And I couldn't mentally get myself to go into work. I was like, if I come in, it's not going to serve anybody well because I'm just in this spirit, like you said, having this energy that just wasn't going to work well with me being around other people's kids, let alone my own. Um, and so I had taken the time off just to like get myself together. So I thought, because I still went back kind of like with the same low energy, and I'm also a big believer in energy transference. So like being around someone who had just gotten to a point of being so negative, like there was nothing good in life. Like I even asked him at one point, like, is there anything that makes you happy? You know? And he was kind of like, like not really. And even that was like a blow, like, like really? Um, but yeah, it was too much. Nothing was right. It was even to the point of, the kids would be dropped off, and the youngest one, they're like, oh, say bye to dad or whatever. And he would kind of like argue this whole point of, well, why do they need to say good morning? Why do they need to say, um, and like that's not necessary. I'm just coming to drop them off. And I'm like, well, you do realize if you would just say good morning like everybody else, you could have been finished. Like, but you're standing here arguing over why they need to learn how to say good morning and, have a nice day. And so I don't know. I mean, and it just got like that trivial, you know what I mean? And so it's like, nah, it was to the point where I wouldn't even be woken up properly. It was just, if he had a question, I would be dead asleep. And next thing I know, I'm just hearing this barrage of questions, you know, like, oh, well, have you seen my glasses? And have you seen this? I'm like, what? Like, I'm not even awake. So like, so yeah, it just got real nitpicky. um and like you said, the energy of it all is too much. It's too much, and it wasn't me. I mean, we all have our moments, but like I can't dwell in it. I want to be light. I want to feel at peace,
Yeah.
which I do now.
Excellent. So what was the catalyst for you to finally make that leap to change or leave?
um Long story short, it was really over the years there had been combinations of alcoholism, physical abuse, mental, later what I've come to find was a term, financial abuse. I'd never considered that. But
I've never heard that term. What is that? Please describe that.
so it's more or less like someone, in short, it's kind of like someone taking advantage of the fact that you kind of are the one who handles everything financially. So they never actually put in the work to assist because, like, oh, you got it, no matter what, you got it. And so there's like no effort on another part to support the household financially,
Okay.
despite whatever it might actually be doing to you, whether that's known or not. It's like,
Okay.
but you'll figure it out. So, because that's what you've been doing. So I just let you do it.
I
Um,
see. Thank you
and
for that.
I don't, no problem. But I also take, I have to take accountability for myself, because there is a such thing as enabling people, right? Like you teach people how to treat you. And so I have to admit that, whatever happened, like I also played a part in allowing it to happen. And I think that's where that catalyst that you spoke about, is what did it for me. Is like, I was growing very resentful, um, because at one point it wasn't like that in my mind. Like I felt like if I got it, you got it, we're living in this house together, and I'm not going to go without just because you might be having a down moment or whatever. And, so I'm just like, hey, this is just, what we do. And if I would assume that if things went bad for me, like you would be able to help support in whatever way that you could. And it wasn't that. And it was just a barrage of accusations. The kids aren't mine was always the first go to, um, which would really rip my heart to shreds. Excuse me. And so the last fight essentially, was the last fight. Um, the police had been called twice. He had been drinking. A knife was brandished on me. I got pushed down the stairs, or attempted to kick me down the stairs, and then grabbed me by the hair to push me down the stairs. All while the kids are in the house and they're running back and forth, wherever we are, they're moving in the opposite direction. And then he comes to me as I went to the living room. I sat on the couch to keep myself from doing anything. And he's yelling and screaming and hollering. And he said to me, the toilet paper that I use to wipe my ass with is more useful than you.
Oh,
And yeah. Yeah. And after 16 years and being the one who was pretty much carrying everything, that was a lot to take in. He said a whole lot, but to be honest, that's the only thing I remember. And then to have our son later come downstairs with his sisters and for him to repeat that to me, was a lot. And then to hear the conversation between him and my daughter, where he was coming downstairs behind him, kind of questioning what was going on and why he was behaving the way he was. And she's like, he's a grown man. Like, why is he acting like this? And my son, who was 11 at the time, is like, stop saying that. She's like, stop saying what? And he says, he's an adult, but he's not a man.
oh.
To hear this conversation between an 11 and an 8-year-old, while the 5-year-old is sitting on the side on the floor in tears with her hands over her ears, I'm like, come on.
Out of the mouths of babes, right?
Yeah,
Oh
absolutely.
my goodness. Was that the moment?
That was it. That was it. And then behind that, I think the second part of it was, like I said, there he had brandished a knife. And when I saw it, I immediately got up and I ran to the kitchen because it was a knife out of the kitchen. And so I ran to the kitchen and I grabbed, just out of the holder, I grabbed 3 of the sharpest knives that were there and I started sharpening them. And so he came into the kitchen behind me and he was like, well, what's that for? And I'm like, whatever I need it for. And so he took the knife out of his pocket and he was like, well, I'm not going to do anything with this. And I'm like, yeah, well, I don't know what you plan on doing. So, um, so anyway, later the next day, that was like Friday evening, that Saturday morning, throughout the night and everything, I kept the knives with me. And by Saturday morning, I was in the kitchen again. And it's funny, I was actually logged on to some type of workshop or something I had to do on Zoom. And just to show you, right, like how you settle yourself in normalcy behind stuff like this. And my son, again, as I'm setting everything up in the kitchen and I'm getting ready to fix breakfast and all this type of stuff, in the midst of having done all of this other nonsense through the night, and he came in, and I honestly, Teresa, didn't even realize I still had the knives. He came in as I was setting up my computer, cooking breakfast, and then someone called me, so I'm on the phone, and I'm watching him put the knives away. And he whispers over to me like, something like, I got it, and I'm like, oh my God. And so like he clearly understood why I had them. And, to watch my son in essence, like taking care of me in this type of moment to try to keep the peace, to be the peacekeeper between his own parents and watch over his sister. Uh-uh. I'm like, this is crazy. And so yeah, that's when I was just like, I can't. And I was talking to a friend of mine on the phone and I said it to her. And it was the first time I had been thinking it, but it was the first time I actually said it out loud that I couldn't do it anymore. And I was like, I need to get out of here. I have to get out of here. And she was like, well, however you need to do it, if maybe you just need to leave for a few days. And I was like, nah, it's more than that. Like this is it. Like I have to go. Um, and so yeah, that's where I was with that. And then even in the midst of that, I guess the third part of it was when he called the police the first time because they came into the house and they were saying that he had accused me of abusing him, and he had these scratches in his face, but he didn't tell him that he got the scratches in his face from when he was trying to knock me down the stairs. And so I grabbed him in the face. And he ran out the house, unbeknownst to me at the time, to call the police. And so as they're in the house, there are two officers with me, two with him. They escorted him upstairs. He was like gathering some of his things. And as he walked past me, I was in the kitchen and he says, "You're marked." And so I said to the officers, I was like, you all heard that, right? Like, that's a threat. Like, you're not going to do anything. You're not going to say anything. And the officer was like, well, you said some things. He said some things. You did some things. He did some things. Like, it's a wash. And I said to him, Teresa, I said, you all won't be satisfied until you come back into this house with a body bag, and it won't be for me.
Okay.
And when I said it, I meant it, but I didn't like it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because that's not the type of person that I am. Um, but I wholeheartedly meant it. And I knew even in that moment, even though I didn't put it all together till a few hours later, Saturday morning, I was like, okay, I can't, yeah, this has just turned me into someone and something that I'm not.
Yeah.
And to call that out, because again, like you said, energy and manifestation, I'm a believer in it. Your words bring truth to power. And for me to stand there and say, that this is what's going to have to happen for you all to take me seriously, and to know that I wholeheartedly meant it, it was time to go.
Oh my goodness. So what did you end up doing?
I called my mom. I'm from the Midwest. I was living on the East Coast at the time. And I asked her, could I come back? And I didn't really even know for sure if I meant like for an extended visit, or permanently. Like I wasn't sure, but I just asked to come back. And it was funny because it was in August and I had just come back in July, the end of July. So I might have only been back for 2 or 3 weeks.
Not long, but long enough.
And it's funny because when, I always came back home to visit my family and everything, but that last visit was the first time, and again, I didn't say it to anybody, but it was the first time that I ever thought about moving back home, back to at least to my home city and everything. And I had been gone for 30 years.
Wow.
And, like I said, I've always come back to visit with my kids and everything. And even before I had kids, I always came home for holidays and stuff where I could. But this was the first time since I was 17. Even when I was 17, I was ready to go. Like, I miss you. I love you. I'll come back to visit, but I'm out. And but this was the first time that I actually had a desire to come back. And I didn't say it to anyone. And just before we were leaving out, I had called Uber to take us to the airport. My oldest daughter we were walking to the door and she stopped me and she said to me, "Do you like it here?" And I was like, "What do you mean? Like at grandma's house?" And she was like, "No, I mean like here, like, in this state." And I said, "Yeah, I grew up here. So of course I like it." And she said, "Hmm." And she goes, "Well, you might consider moving back."
Oh, again, your children are very intuitive. Wow.
I hadn't said a word to her or anybody. And I was like, okay, I'm like, okay, let's go.
Yeah.
Like you said, I never said anything, but for her to say it, and then like I said, this was 3 weeks later, maybe. Um, yeah. And so my mom, of course, was like, come back if that's what you feel the need to do. And yeah, that was on that Saturday. And my plan was to leave the following Wednesday.
Mhm.
I was going to drive back. And it was funny because I had never driven on the expressway.
Oh,
Never. I had only had my license for 9 months and only had my car for 9 months.
brave lady. Brave lady.
And all at the time, all the utilities were in my name. He had taken over the rent for a couple of years, so that was helpful, but all the utilities were in my name. And because I had planned on leaving Wednesday, I had set everything up. So I was like, okay, I'll leave after he goes to work, gets up real early. And so I had called all the utility companies and like had everything prearranged to cut off after we would be gone. And I get up Wednesday morning and he's still home.
Oh no.
And I'm like, what's the problem? And he's like, I'm really not feeling the best. And he had taken off the day before. And then Wednesday he took off. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so he's like, I don't know. I don't feel like going in. So I'm just taking the day off, which was a whole nother thing because that was another issue, particularly within this year, that year was that everything that was happening with the kids because there were still like COVID effects and stuff going on in the schools and what have you. And so everything that was happening with them, I would get the phone calls. I would have to take the days off, and I'm like, okay, can we like share a little bit of this, even if they have to be out for 3 days, if you could take one and then let me take two or something. And it would be nothing, Teresa. Like I had to do everything. And it had gotten to the point where I was being deducted pay, like I had lost that much time. So anytime I was off, it was going to be a deduction. And then dealing at work on top of all of the stuff about, oh well, she's cool with the principal because the principal was fairly new. I came in with her as that whole drama. And they were like, well, she's not being deducted. And I'm like, who?
Wow. So what was your plan to get out then?
So like I said, I was gonna leave that Wednesday. I had to run to my car and cancel everything.
Oh,
And I'm like, okay, we still here. So, like, I can't have everything shut off. And so at that point, really, Teresa, I didn't know when I was gonna leave. Like, cause he called that morning and when he called in, I thought he was calling in to say, I'm not coming in today. he called in and he said, I'm not coming in today. And then he said, I'm not coming in for the rest of the week. Uh,
Oh no.
and I was like, oh my God. Um, so anyway, so the next day, I was just like, okay, I gotta go. Like, I have to go. Um, and so he says, well, I'm gonna start looking for another job. I think I want to switch jobs. And there's this place that's a lot closer. It's up the street. I think I'm gonna run up there and talk to them and whatever. And so I was like, okay. And it so happened like where we were parked, I usually would be able to park on the block, but this day I couldn't. So the car was like 2 blocks away, and his 2 blocks away. And so I'm like, okay. So I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, how am I going to do this? How am I going to, because I got to leave today. And so I told everyone that we were going school shopping. Like, we're going to get supplies, clothes, all this stuff, get up, wash up, get ready. So everybody was up and eating, dressed, ready. I had already over the prior days, I had been packing up all of our paperwork and stuff. And then I had, in the midst of the fighting from a few days before, I somehow sat down in the middle of it and separated laundry. Um,
The things we do when we're stressed to the max, right?
I sat down and started separating the laundry. And again, it was kind of like a blessing in disguise, though, because he took the laundry out to be to be laundered or whatever. And so when he brought it back, I thought he wasn't going to take my things, but he did. So all of my things with the kid stuff was in one bag and his was in the other. So I was packed up already for what it was worth. I was like, whatever is in the laundry bag, that's what I'm leaving with. That was it. And so when he finally left out to go check on this other job, I literally set my alarm because I'm good for that. And I set my timer and I was like, okay, I'm giving myself 15 minutes to get out of here. And packed up everything in the car. The kids weren't even paying me any attention. And so when I came back up, I'm like out of breath because I'm running to the third floor, to the second floor outside, packing the car. And so I come back and I'm like, okay. And they had their tablets and stuff. And I'm like, grab your tablets. And they were like, yeah, we were going to bring that anyway. And I'm like, get the chargers. And they're like, why? We're only going up the street. I'm like, just get your charger. So get in the car. I stop. I go to the gas station, top off. I said, okay, let me stop, get some money, just to have something in my pocket. Sorry. And I did that, or so I thought. We pull up, and as we're walking through the parking lot, I'm like, oh my God, we almost walked right into him. Like he was at this same place.
Oh no.
And so I'm like, go back to the car, go back to the car. So they get in the car. And I was like, okay. And I'm sitting there and I'm freaking out. I'm trying not to, but I really am. And so they're not saying anything. They're looking at me. And so I'm watching them drive around the parking lot. And he drove right past us. And I'm like, I don't know if he saw me, if he's following me, like your head is all over the place. And so I'm watching him go out the lot and I'm like, okay, if he goes to the left, he's probably going back home. And if he goes to the right, that's where the expressway is. And so he makes the left. So I'm like, okay, I guess he's going back home. And so I moved parking spots. I was like, okay, forget the bank. We're just going to go and let me get them some food and snacks and stuff, and I'll just get cash back. So we go in the store, and I'm like, just get some snacks. And they're like, huh? Like, just get snacks. And so they start picking up stuff, and they're like, can we have this? I'm like, yes, yes, yes. My youngest, when she comes, Teresa, with like this big pack of cookies, like the 24 pack. And she's like, can I have this? And I'm like, yeah, let's go.
Just hurry up. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
So we load up the car. I head out the lot. I make the right. And so I'm starting to, merge onto the expressway, and they all went, and I said, they were like, where are we going? And I said, do you guys trust me? And they're like, yeah. And I said, we're going to grandma's house. And so they were like, wait, so we're going to the airport? And I'm like, oh, right. They don't know about a road trip. We've always flown. So they're like, so we're on our way to the airport? And I'm like, no. And so they're like, well, how are we going to get there? I'm going to drive there. And they're like, who's driving? So I felt so bad. And I'm like, me, and we made it, we stopped a few times, spent the night or whatever. There were some hard conversations to be had, along the way. But at the end of the day, I was just like, I needed to do it. I said, guys, we have to be safe. And I just don't feel like we were safe anymore. And so when I made it back, I was calling everyone to let them know that we made it back in. And my friends came over. I thank God for them. They came over. My son took my daughters out the car. They were playing stickball in front of the apartment. But I knew he did it just to, get everybody up and out. And I'm sitting behind the wheel. Like I said, I'm making phone calls and whatever, and I'm just bawling. And I'm like in emotion overload. And my friends come, and they literally, like, they actually live 20 and even 40 some odd minutes away. They were in that parking lot with me in less than 10 minutes. And
Wow.
yeah. And so when they came in, they came over to the car, and my friend, she was like, you got to get out the car. And I was like, I can't, like, I can't move. And she's like, you have to. She's like, you've been sitting long enough. You got to get up. And eventually I was able to get up. And when I did, Teresa, my abdomen was sore. Like, I didn't realize how tense I was. And the closer I was getting to my mom's, the more agitated the drive became, the harder it became. My son was even like, you sure you don't want to pull over? I'm like, no, we're too close.
Oh my gosh.
And the whole time we're driving, and we're around all these trucks and stuff, and which I don't like. And so I'm driving, and I'm going, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And he says, well, when you're praying while you're driving, like, you might want to pull off.
Oh my gosh. So it sounds like you were caught in that fight, flight, and freeze area. And when you got to your mom's, you were frozen.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you did learn where your stress sits and resides in your body.
Yeah.
For
Yeah,
sure,
like
right?
I said, I didn't know that. And it didn't even dawn on me. Like, I realized it after the fact that I could feel it. But like you said, there was so many emotions, and the adrenaline is really just pumping, really. And by the time I stood up, and I was like, oh my goodness. And when I stood up, I fell over her. Like, I was just like, oh my God. And she was like, yeah, it's okay. It's normal. She's like, you're sore, aren't you? I'm like, yes, I'm
Wow.
very sore.
Oh, thank goodness you had some amazing friends to
Yeah.
be there with you. I
Yeah.
mean, that is one heck of an incredible story, Kissonda, and I'm so glad that you and your children made it safely.
Thank you.
That's incredible. So, can you tell the listeners what limiting beliefs or roadblocks did you overcome in order to get where you are today?
Limiting beliefs were that I couldn't do, that I couldn't drive. Most people, they go through that part of their life when they're like 16, 17 years old. Here I was at 46. Um, and I had a fear of it, but I did it because I had to. At that point, I had the three kids, and they all had all these other things going on, and I'm like, okay, well, now I have to have it. Um, And I was better than I thought I was going to be. As we do with most things, you build it up in your head far more than what the reality of it is. Um, and just that I really had this belief of not thinking that I could make it on my own. Because there was a part of, like I said, especially with the driving and the moving everyone around, like I was really dependent on him. And he knew it, because sometimes that was the punishment behind an argument. Well, I'll just leave, and let's see how that helps you, you know. and so I, not realizing that, I started buying into that. If he's not around, then it will make things harder. Did it make things a little more difficult? Yeah. But was it impossible? No, it wasn't. Um, and it was far more peaceful. So it was worth it.
Right.
Um, and that I had built a community, a family for myself, despite the fact that I wasn't physically with my biological family. And of course, they were always there for me, but when you're not in the same space, it feels different.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so knowing that I still had that, even some of those people were within his own family. Um, and for the moment, I had to even kind of push them back, because I needed to know that this was something that I could do. My family and friends were ready. They were like, listen, I even had to pull over at one point because something got into my contact. My eyes started closing while I was driving. And they were like, you got an hour. Okay, you got an hour to pull it together. And if we haven't heard from you in an hour, you're gonna have to stay where you are because we're coming to get you.
Oh,
And we're gonna drive
wow.
you in the rest of the way, And I felt like, Teresa, I literally felt like I had to know that I could do it myself,
Yeah.
from the beginning to the end.
Do
And I
you
did.
do you think, Cassandra, if you hadn't had your children, that you would have made the same plan and the same escape? Or would you have stayed, do you think?
I think had it not been for my kids, I would have left sooner.
Ah,
Because that to me would have felt easier because it was just me, and I felt confident in being able to take care of myself. Being able to do it with 3 other lives in tow, depending on the decisions that I made, those were the things that were really hard. Because what if I mess up, right? What
yeah.
if I'm not making the right move? And sometimes I still battle with that because it hasn't been a year just yet. Um, and sometimes, my kids still go through it because for me, like, I'm home, right? That was their home. That's where they were born and raised. And so now they're making this complete adjustment and they're doing really well with it. But excuse me. But they have their moments,
Of
My
course.
5-year-old, she asked me a few weeks ago, she was like, well, she said, Mommy, when we left, you said, and she just said it out the blue. She says, you said that we were going to get school supplies. And I said, yeah. And she said, but we didn't go get school supplies. We came here. And I said, yeah. And she says, you lied. And you tell us not to lie. And I'm
That's a
like,
difficult conversation. Yes. Oh,
I'm like,
boy. But your kids are okay otherwise, and
they're
they're
okay. I'm in therapy. They have access to counseling through their school. Their school was phenomenal,
excellent.
phenomenal. When I tell you I still have family, like, I know that there was a divine order in making the move because so many things came to pass that I could not have possibly planned. Absolutely not. And it's funny because before we left, Like I said, I was planning to leave on a Wednesday. We left Thursday. I took my kids to the doctor that Monday, which was part of why I was leaving a little bit later in the week. And on our way, I was going to drive them, but I knew parking over there was really hard. So I said, you know what? I'll take an Uber just so we can go get it over with. I took the Uber. We get there, their doctor was sick. And so the office wasn't open yet. So they were like, but you can go to this location here, and we've already called it in and blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, okay, fine. And apparently they had already called me to tell me that the doctor was out, but I didn't get the message.
Great.
Okay, right. Like, great. Okay, whatever, because I still got to get it done. So we go to the next office, we get everything done. Um, and I was able, they were like, it was funny. The lady said, do you need copies of their medical records? I'm like, yeah, okay.
That's an odd
Uh,
question.
yeah, yep. And I
Yeah.
walked out with copies of every last one of their records.
Wow.
And because I had this was a new doctor, because my old one, like my insurance was a whole hot mess with them. So I didn't need it. So she made copies for me. So I walked out with copies of their whole medical history for each child and called the Uber. We get in the car, Teresa, and this was, oh my God. I realized it at the time, but not the way I did in hindsight. We get in the car, and I noticed the route we're taking seems kind of funny to me, right? And I'm like, why are we going this way? How come we like this seems like kind of roundabout? And I started to say something about it. And then I was like, you know what? Let me just let it rock, because he's following. I could see he was following the GPS. And I was like, maybe there's some construction or something, going on that I'm not aware of. So this is the route it's giving, right? That's the best route. So I didn't say anything, as much as I wanted to be like, why are we taking this
Yeah.
direction? Why are we going this way? And so anyway, we're riding down the street. And then I wasn't even looking. I was reading something or whatever. And I look up, and I'm really now paying attention to where we are. And it was the neighborhood where I had first had my first teaching job. We passed by there, where he and I met because he lived in the same area. We passed by there, where my son's baby shower was. So that was my first child. And we passed by there. And that whole neighborhood was kind of like where I grew up, so to speak, professionally and personally and all of this. And so we're passing by, and I realized I hadn't been in that neighborhood in years. And I'm like, oh my God. And so as we're going through, my son at the time, he was about to transfer schools. And so he had kept saying over the last few weeks, like, we went online and he looked everything up, but he was like, but I want to see the building. Like, I want to see it. So as we're driving, he says, Mom, look at this. And I look up, and we're at the stop sign, and the school that he was going to transfer to is right next to us. And so he actually had a chance to see the physical
Wow.
space of the school. And I said to myself, I was like, oh my God, it felt like, how there was this old tradition, I know, at least and I know it's more than just in Black communities, but where a person would pass, and before they buried them, they would ride them around their old neighborhood, kind of like that one last before they would go. And that's what it felt like to me.
Oh,
That's what it felt like.
that's powerful. Oh
Yeah,
my goodness.
yeah,
Wow.
that's what
Wow.
it felt like. And I was like, because I kept saying, these were my stomping ground. Like, this is where I started. This is where I started. The elementary school where I started was right up the street. The middle school that I later transferred to, and I taught in middle school for the next 18 some odd years, we passed it. Where I met my kid's father and where he lived was a block away. Where my son's baby shower was 2 blocks away from where he lived. Like, it was all right there. And I had not been in that area in years.
Wow. It was saying goodbye to everything pretty much,
Mhm.
wasn't
And
it?
that's exactly how
Oh,
I felt. And my son, again, he kept saying about this school. He was like, I want to actually see the school. He's like, it's not the same as looking at it online.
no.
He got to see the school.
Wow.
Uh, so yeah.
Wow, that is incredible. What an incredible journey you've had. So, Cassandra, what daily habits or rituals would you say that you've implemented in your life now that you've got this new freedom? And
Um, a few things. One was I had to, once I kind of got settled a little bit, um, I had to take care of my health. Because mentally I was all over the place. Physically, my health was starting to decline. And I was like, okay, this can't be either, you know. And so I had to, my mom gifted me with a gym membership, and I started just doing that kickboxing.
oh, good one.
Yeah, right. I'm like, talk about a workout and getting off like some frustrations. No, I was like, this is perfect. So I do kickboxing, I do some yoga, we do kettlebell. Now that the kids are out, it's a little tougher for me to get in to do that. So I do a lot of walking now, and they come with me. My
Nice.
mom comes with me. So we do at least 30 minutes of walking. Everything that was starting to decline with my health reversed. And so I'm much better than where I was, because I had ended up in the emergency room in the ER, and I had to get a double blood transfusion and all this type of stuff. I couldn't breathe. Um, and so it was just a lot that was happening all at once. And so I was able, and so I still make sure, and I'm like, it's not just a diet and exercise. No, it's a health and wellness journey. And I know what I need to do to be able to take care of myself, because it's selfish of me to not take care of myself. Um,
Absolutely. You have
and,
three other people that are depending on you to take care of yourself, right?
and I can't do that if I'm not well, then they're not.
Exactly.
And so I've been doing that. Definitely doing some personal development work. And like I said, I reached out to a group of my high school friends. Again, I picked 5 names based on what I knew. I have not seen them for the most part in 30 years. I still haven't seen most of them since I've been here. We've spoken, we've all been Facebook friends, but I haven't physically seen them. And one young lady became my kid's pediatrician. I told her, I was like, I need a pediatrician. Can you help me with some recommendations? She was like, yeah, I'll take them. And I was like, but they said, I had already called in, and I was like, you can't take any more patients. She was like, I'll take care of that. She's
That is fabulous. So it's really important to keep your mindset strong, which helps your body stay strong, eating healthy, getting enough exercise, being with people that love and support you, having a good tribe around you, if that's the word you want to use. That is so powerful. All those tools have really led you to a good place in this world, haven't they?
Yeah, they have. And they were extremely necessary. Another, she helped me get the counseling services that I needed,
Excellent.
and I got it free of charge. Another helped me to sign up for the for my medical insurance and everything. Another one got clothes for my kids.
Beautiful.
And so it was just like all, and that's why I said I could not have planned it. I picked the names that came to me, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I put them all in a group. I put my pride to the side, and I said, listen, because what has always been hard for me is to say that I need help. I'm good at helping other people, but to admit that I need help and then accept the help
That's
has
hard.
always been hard for me.
Yeah.
And I put it to the side, and I said, listen, this is my situation. Anything that you can do, I said, I was led to pick every last one of you to put you in this group to let you know what's going on. And one, she reached back out to me and was like, I've been where you are. which I didn't know. And she was like, and here are the things that I did, and here are some steps you may need to take.
Oh, that's beautiful. Kissonda, in our last few moments with our session today, or our recording today, and thank you for being so beautifully honest and open with us. What encouraging words would you give to another person who has experienced what you've gone through, who is afraid to take that leap of faith?
Do it scared, but you got to do it. And enough is not enough until you make the move that says it's enough. Because you can talk about it. I talked about it for years. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of that. But I also didn't move on it for years.
Right.
And to know, unfortunately, that it'll get worse before it gets better. So why wait around for the worst part of it? You know, because it's not a surprise to you. You've lived it long enough. You know what the patterns are. You know what the cycles are. You know what's going to be said. You know when it's going to be said. You know, there's and again, that kind of goes with the comfort of it all. You know already what's going to happen. So why stay in it? You know, so whenever you're actually ready to make the move, not just talk about it, but to make a move, then things will fall into place. You know, it's not going to be roses. And I'm not going to lie and sit here and act like, you know, everything just fell into perfect pieces and it's been this easy walk. It hasn't.
No.
But it's possible. It's possible. And that's the part that you have to know. But it's only possible when you begin to enact the motion of it.
That is beautifully said. And that leads right into the quote that you provided, if I could read it for you. Sure. When God said, "Let there be light," he was giving you permission to shine. And that's quoted from 100 Days of Believing Bigger, devotional journey by Marshawn Evans Daniels. Thank you so much for that. And Kissonda, excuse me for mispronouncing your name. I will have all of your links on your episode, and listeners, please reach out to this amazing lady. If she can be your one person to help support you, to get you to move, to take an action step, please reach out. This woman has a brilliant story, and Kissonda, thank you for sharing it on Powering Through Life. You are amazing, and I thank you for sharing your journey with us.
Thank you, Teresa, and thank you for providing a platform for us to be able to share with each other where we've been and where we are, and having the opportunity to support someone else.
This is what it's all about for me, is someone needs to hear your story, and it is through just motivating the world through conversation. Someone will hear that and say, I needed to hear that today. And this is what my mission is in life. So listeners, I can't say enough about this amazing lady. Get in touch with her, and thank you for listening to Powering Through Life, where we do and we are motivating the world through conversation. Thank you for listening to Powering Through Life, where we explore life's challenges and learn valuable insights from my guests about how they have powered through their lives to survive and thrive. We can learn incredible lessons by sharing and motivating the world through conversation. You can access all of the Powering Through Life episodes on my website, teresasims.com, YouTube, Facebook, and Spreaker. So join us again next time for another inspiring conversation.